What's up, y'all? We back with another banger. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys some of my favorite Flash style transitions I use on my videos. From simple to sauced up, gonna break it down for you guys, and hopefully you walk away from here with some fresh ideas for your next video edit. Feels so good to be back on the channel, hanging out with you guys, breaking down more dope video effects. So excited about today's tutorial. I know you guys are gonna love it. And as always, I am open to accepting more video editing projects. So if you guys have videos that you want edited by me personally and potentially displayed on this channel in tutorials, please reach out to me on Instagram. Let's chop it up. And I'd love to learn more about the projects you guys are working on. So in my Premiere Pro timeline, I just have some clips from a music video I edited for an artist called 3am. The song is called Take What's Mine. All the footage was filmed by Shot by Phantom. So I just ripped some clips from that music video edit I'm going to be using today to show you guys how to create some really dope flash effects. So on this first example here, you can see we've already got a cut in between this shot and this shot. And we're going to add a flash effect in between these two shots. What you can do is actually apply the flash effect directly onto the clip you want it to have happen. But what I like to do is create my effects on adjustment layers so I can copy paste them down the timeline instead of recreating the effect over and over again. So what I'm going to do under the project panel is come down to new item, and we're going to create an adjustment layer. We're going to throw that adjustment layer right above our clips, get to where the cut is. So right here in between these two clips, I'm going to hold shift, go to the left once, and that's going to go over 5 frames on the left side of my adjustment layer. I'm just going to cut, hold shift, go to the right twice. So now we have an adjustment layer that is 10 frames long. Hop into our effects panel. We're just going to type in an effect called brightness and contrast, and we're going to throw that brightness and contrast onto this adjustment layer. Now right here at the very middle where the two clips meet, we're going to turn up the brightness and we're going to turn up the contrast a little bit as well. And we're just going to make a keyframe there smack in the middle. Now we're going to go back to the beginning of this adjustment layer and we're going to reset those keyframes. So now what's going to happen is it's going to start from 0, go to our really bright flash effect. And then at the very end, we're also going to reset those keyframes again, drag those keyframes to the very end. So now as I scroll over, you can see super clean flash effect. Another really easy way to create a basic flash effect on your videos is if we delete this brightness and contrast, we can actually throw on this effect called levels, and we can throw that onto our adjustment layer. Right at the middle of these two clips, we can make a keyframe for white input level and take that down. So you can see we can get more of an extreme flash with this effect. And then again, right at the beginning, we're going to reset it. And then right at the end, I'm going to reset it again. So it goes back to normal. And now as I scroll over, you can see we get a really bright flash from that. Now, if you want to make this even a little bit more creative, we can take the same effect levels, drag it onto our clip. And again, at this very middle point in between both clips, you can see we have RGB settings on the levels effect. We have red, green, and blue, and we can basically customize the color of our flash. So say I want a completely red flash here. Maybe the video has a lot of red tones, which this video actually does. I can come down to the red white input level. And again, right where those two clips are connected, we can lower that. You can see we get a really bright red flash there. We'll make a keyframe back at the beginning, just reset those values. And now you can see we're getting a colorful flash that looks a little bit more creative than just your basic white flash. So those are two really easy flash transitions that you can create. This next flash transition is a rapid flash transition. I think this is great building up a moment in your video. For this next example, I actually found kind of a break in the song here. You can see in between the drums, there's this kind of quiet area here in the audio. And this was a perfect spot to add a rapid flash transition. So there's a couple different ways to approach this. We're basically gonna do the same thing we did before and create a new adjustment layer. And we're gonna click and drag that adjustment layer above both of our clips. For this one, we're actually going to keep 10 frames on the left, and then we're only going to keep 5 frames on the right of the cut. Just keyframe a brightness and contrast. So we can just take the same effect as before, make a brightness and contrast here. Right at the cut, we're going to increase the brightness and contrast all the way, make a keyframe there. Now what I'm going to do is just go back 2 frames, and I'm going to take these values way down. Let's just take them down almost back to normal. It's like right there, very minimal flash here. Just go every 2 frames and just bump the flash up a little bit and then bring it back down. So we're basically alternating bright and when it's not. So I'm just going to keep doing that along my timeline. You could just start copy pasting these, but it's really not that many frames. So we're just going to reset them, do it all manually. And now as I scroll scroll through here, you can see the clip starts to kind of flash rapidly. And now at the cut in between both clips, we're gonna make it really bright, obviously, turn the contrast way up. We want it to be very dramatic right at that cut. And then I'm gonna use the last 5 frames, kind of bring it back to normal. So we're not going to keep the flashing going after the cut. We're just going to use it right before the cut. So we get a little flash like that, and then it resets back to normal at the end. There's one more way I really like to make rapid flash transitions on my edits, and that's by using a plugin called Sapphire Flicker. This plugin is contained within the Sapphire plugin suite. Sapphire Flicker is one of my most used plugins. I use it pretty much on every project. But what I'm going to do is actually cut where that adjustment layer meets kind of the end of this first clip. So now we have this chunk of footage here that we can throw the Sapphire Flicker onto. So what I'm going to do is click and drag the Sapphire Flicker effect onto the end of this clip here, drag and drop it. Now, when you first look at the Sapphire Flicker plugin, it can seem a little daunting. It's a very customizable plugin, but I'll share with you some settings that I like to use on my edits with this plugin. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the amplitude to 0.4 instead of 0.2, change the random frequency 45. We're going to change the wave amplitude to 56. This is debatably the most important setting. And then we are going to change the wave frequency to 10. What you can do instead of remaking these effects over and over again from scratch, I can just click the clip where I created the flicker effect. I can right click on this Sapphire Flicker plugin. I can say save preset with my settings, and then we can just call this, we'll just leave it as Sapphire Flicker preset. I'll hit OK. And now if I take a part of this next clip, let's just cut a little chunk into this next clip. I can come up here to my effects panel, drop down my presets, and there's my Sapphire Flicker preset with all the settings we just created. So now I can just throw that same effect around on my timeline instead of remaking it from scratch. This next effect has quickly become one of my favorites to use. It's basically just a camera flashing effect, but what you will need is a camera viewfinder overlay that you can get on Google. You want to make sure it's transparent. So here is my viewfinder overlay, and if I just open it up, you'll notice it's basically what you'll see if you look through a type of camera. And what we're going to do with this overlay is click and drag it on top of our footage. We're going to turn that layer on so we can see it. Now for this effect, I'm going to start at the cut in between both clips. I'm going to hold shift, go to the left twice, and we're going to make a cut there. And then I'm going to hold shift, go to the right 4 times, and make a cut there. So we basically have 20 frames now to use with this viewfinder effect. Now I'm actually going to hop back here into the music video timeline, and I'm just going to take a few screen grabs from this music video of things that I dope. So like this is a dope shot here. We can come down to the export frame button underneath the playback window, and we can save this image as a JPEG. We can browse, we can set it to our desktop, save this picture to our desktop. Now I'm going to do this a couple times. I might find like 2 or 3 images. So I just finished taking screenshots from the music video, and now we're back in the tutorial timeline. Now, before we import any of these screenshots, you want to make sure that your settings are correct to speed up your workflow. So what I'm going to do is come up to Premiere Pro, down my settings menu. I'm going to click on timeline. Now in this settings window, we can actually set how long it's going to import still images into our timeline. So we don't need every image importing to be 5 seconds long. We actually need them to only be a couple frames. So we're actually going to change this to, let's say, 6 frames per image, and we'll hit OK. Now I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and we're just going to click and drag those screenshots into our timeline. You can see they're all 6 frames long. So at this point, I'm actually just going to roughly cut some of these down even more. So just a little bit there on the ends. So now we have our 3 screenshots sitting here over the middle of these 2 clips. You'll notice that the viewfinder overlay still has some empty space on the beginning and the end. Where this viewfinder starts, I'm actually going to cut the existing clip here. So you can see this is the raw clip here on the left side, and then as I scroll through, we start getting that viewfinder overlay popping up. So what I'm going to do is just cut this clip where that viewfinder is. And what I like to do to kind of separate it from the original clip is zoom it in a little bit, make it look a little bit different than what they were previously seeing on screen before. And this is personal preference, but I like adding an effect called monochrome punch onto those images at the beginning and the end. We'll do the same thing here at the end. We'll just cut it where that viewfinder overlay is, zoom it in a little bit, we'll make it monochrome punch. So it's all all black and white. And now what we're gonna do to kind of give it that shutter effect, we're gonna kind of create that effect by using an effect called posterized time on the beginning and end of this. We're gonna take a posterized time and throw it onto our first clip here, and we're gonna set the frame rate. Let's go down to 12, and then we'll just copy paste that same posterized time effect on that last clip as well. So to really sell this effect and make it look like it's actually kind of being shot through a camera lens, we're gonna add some flash. So we're basically gonna do the same thing we did in the first example. We're gonna take a brightness and contrast, but this time we're not going to throw it onto an adjustment layer. We're just gonna throw them onto each one of these clips. So we're gonna take a brightness and contrast, drag it onto our first clip, and this is gonna kind of mimic the camera flash. So we're gonna turn that up all the way like that, and then we'll come in towards the end and just reset those keyframes so it goes back down to normal. So we have a nice big flash there in the beginning, and then we're just gonna copy paste the same brightness and contrast onto these other images as well, kind of just mimic a camera flash happening on screen. And I think I'm also going to throw one onto the very next clip as well as soon as we come out of the viewfinder effect. Now, I definitely recommend going to some sort of website or YouTube and ripping off a rapid camera shutter sound effect. So I found this one on Envato Elements. I'm just going to hit download on this and bring it into my Premiere timeline. So now we have our camera shutter flashing sound effect. It's really gonna feel cool now that we have the sound effect. This next flash effect is super clean. It's basically just a lens flare with a flash effect at the same time. It's super simple to create, and I really love the lens flare effect in Premiere Pro. I think it's so dope. We're gonna make an adjustment layer in between these two new clips. Start at the cut, hold shift, go to the left twice, drag it out to that point, hold shift, go to the left 2 more times on the right side. So now we have 20 frames total. Now at the middle, I always suggest you start designing your transition right at the cut, right at the middle, so you know what it's gonna look like at its full effect. What I'm gonna do is take an effect called lens flare in Premiere Pro, and I'm gonna click and drag that onto our adjustment layer. By default, the lens flare is not super bright, so let's just bump that up to 200%. We're gonna make a keyframe there for flare brightness. We're also gonna keyframe on flare center. We're gonna just move this over to the right a little bit, so it's more centered in the frame. You can see there, now we have a nice even kind of lens flare happening right in the middle. We're gonna have it start on the right side and move to the left side. So now here at the beginning, we're actually gonna bring the flare brightness down to, let's go 50%. And we're also going to start this flare on the far right side of the frame. Now towards the end, we want it to end up on the left side of the frame. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hop to the right side of this adjustment layer closer to the end of this transition, and I'm going to bring the flare brightness back down to 50%, and then we will move the flare to the left side of the frame. So this is a very bright shot. It's kind of hard to see the flare, but it's right here. It's gonna move it a little bit off the edge. Now, the last thing you wanna do is keyframe blend with original. So what I'm gonna do here at the middle, we're gonna keyframe it at 0, and then on either end of this, we're gonna turn it up to 100. So you're not gonna see the lens flare in the very beginning of this transition, and you're not gonna see it at the end either. It's really just gonna kind of come in gradually and move across the frame. So here it is played back in full motion. You can see super clean. I love the way this is looking as I scroll over it. Very dope, very dope. Now, if you want to make this even more fluid, what you can do and what I've done in the past is just add a little cross dissolve in between both of your original clips here at the bottom, and we'll just bring this cross dissolve in so it's super short. We don't need it to last very long, maybe just like 2 to 4 frames. It's just going to make it even more seamless. This next flash effect is super clean, and we're basically just going to be combining the same principle as before, adding a little brightness and contrast onto this transition. But what makes this transition unique is we're going to be using an effect called Sapphire EdgeRays. This is again a part of the Sapphire plugin suite, which I'll leave a link to down below if you want to check it out. But basically what we're going to do is take Sapphire EdgeRays and throw it onto our secondary clip. It just adds these streaks of light coming off of things in the frame. Now there's a lot of red in this frame, so what I'm going to do first is actually change the ray color. We're just going to add a little bit of that red hue to these rays. Now instead of these rays shooting straight down, I kind of want them to shoot up and out a little bit. So I'm just going to adjust the center X and Y here. On this Y axis, I'm just going to increase it until these rays are pointing more straight up and out. So you can see there as I increase it, the rays start to shoot up. What I like to do is increase the ray brightness from like a 2 to a 4. And then I also like to increase the ray length. So we can increase the ray length a little bit here. Let's just go to like a 0.4. Keyframe the ray brightness. We're going to keyframe the ray length. Now we're going to go 10 frames to the right. So I'm just gonna hold shift and hit my right arrow key twice. 1, 2. So now we're 10 frames farther into this clip, and I'm just going to reset the ray brightness and the ray length. And on this part of the clip, I'm actually going to bring the ray brightness down to 0. So you won't even be able to see the rays anymore. And now we're back into the normal clip. So now this is what we're getting after we render this effect. Boom. You see the rays kind of coming out from the artist there. I actually kind of want this effect to last a little bit longer. So let's just drag these keyframes down a little bit farther. So now to really finish off this effect, we're just going to click and drag an adjustment layer into our timeline. We're just going to basically take same thing we kind of been doing with the brightness and contrast and throw that onto here. We're just going to go to effects, brightness and contrast, and at the cut, we're going to make it really, really bright, increase the contrast a little bit, really make it intense, add some keyframes there in the middle towards the beginning, reset them so it gradually gets brighter, and then boom, and then towards the end, we'll reset them back down to 0, and that'll happen as the rays kind of dissipate. So now we get this nice flash effect into the EdgeRays effect. This next flash transition is for when your video is about to hit really hard. Maybe you have kind of like a slower part in the song, and then bam, that kick drum comes back in, the beat drops, and you just need that kind of flash impact to happen on your footage to really emphasize the drop in the music. Now for this effect, we're going to be using Shake Sauce, which is an After Effects plugin by Brian Delamata. I'll make sure to leave a link to this plugin down below. It's very useful, very user-friendly, almost no learning curve, and I just think it's a great plugin to use. So you can see here on my timeline, we've got 2 clips from that music video, and if I zoom in on this music track, you can see how it's kind of like a lull in the music right here. It's kind of slow and quiet, and then bam, right here on this very first beat drop, that's when we want to add that shake and that flash into the video. So what I'm going to do is just take this clip, I'm going to duplicate it so we still have the original here in Premiere Pro in case we want to go back and change that later on. I'm just going to right click on this new clip and hit replace with After Effects composition. So now that we're in After Effects, all I'm going to do is select our footage. I'm going to come up here to Window Extensions and click on Shake Sauce. Now this has a bunch of presets you can pick from and check out before you apply them to your clip. I'm just going to use one from the keyframe section. That way it's not happening over the entire video. Some of these other ones will shake for the entire clip, but I only want it to shake for a few seconds. So what I'm going to do under our keyframe section is just find one of these that looks pretty sick, something that's going to really hit hard with the song, something that has a little flash with it. So let's find one that has some flash with it. This hard hit with flash is pretty intense. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to double click on hard hit with flash. I'm going to click out of Shake Sauce. And now when we play this back, you can see it gives us a nice shake and flash at the beginning of this clip. Now, if I want to make this even more crazy, I can increase the brightness of this flash. We can bring it up to a 4 instead of a 2. And then we can also change the position amplitude from a 190. Let's go to like a 240. So it just shakes a little bit more that way. And then we can just export this and bring it back into Premiere. Now back in Premiere, what I can do is just stack the new file on top of our After Effects file. And we're gonna turn that layer on so we can see it. And this is really my preferred workflow. Anytime I'm bouncing in between Premiere and After Effects and applying effects in After Effects, I do like to stack each version in Premiere. So we have the original at the bottom, then we have the After Effects file here, and then we have the rendered After Effects effect on the very top. This last flash transition is so easy to apply to your videos. It only takes seconds. I'm gonna be showing you guys how to use flash presets in your video edits. I have 2 clips here on my timeline. We have this clip of him here in this red tunnel, and then we have this clip of him holding this styrofoam cup, kind of looking out into the sky. Now at the cut right here in between both these clips, what we're going to do is hold shift and go to the left once with our left arrow. We're going to make a cut there, and we're going to hold shift and go to the right twice and make a cut there. So we have 5 frames on either side of our initial cut. And what I'm going to do is highlight chunks of clips right there, and we're going to right click on it and select nest. This will basically just combine both those clips into one. And now what I'm going to do is hover over the presets under my effects, and I'm going to open up Blueprints. Blueprints is my Adobe Premiere transition preset preset pack, which you can download on venturvisuals.com. I do have a free version of this pack that you can get by downloading my free pack. It's going to come with a couple presets from the full pack that you can try out. Now in this pack, I do have a bunch of flash type transitions. So we can basically go through all these presets if we want to and just throw them onto this nested sequence, and it's going to give us a different type of transition every single time. This saves a lot of time because you won't have to create a bunch of flash transitions from scratch. You can basically just take in my blueprints pack and start applying transitions all down your timeline within seconds. And this isn't just for flash transitions, it's a lot of different types of transitions as well. So let's just try one real quick. Let's just take the clean flash transition, throw that onto our nested sequence, and you can already see we're getting a nice clean flash transition. Now, if I don't like this specific transition preset, I can just hit Command Z to undo it, and we can pick a different type of flash transition. So let's just take this one, flash shake, drag it onto our nested sequence layer. You can see now we're seeing a lot of energy here, and there's a lot of blur going on in this transition. So boom, that one's a little bit more intense. Not sure I like that one for this specific video. So let's just Command Z that preset off of this nested sequence as well and move on to another flash. You can try this one, sharp flash. I think this one's a little bit more subtle, and this one just has a little directional blur to it, kind of just a nice, easy on the eyes flash right there. I really like how that one's looking. So for this last transition preset, let's go ahead and throw on this one called flicker. Let's just throw that one onto our nested sequence. I think that one's dope. There you have it, guys. Those are some of my favorite flash style transitions. I know there's a lot of different ways to make flash transitions, so if any of this felt messy, maybe you didn't understand certain parts of today's tutorial, please reach out through Instagram or in my YouTube comments with any questions you might have. I'm always happy to help you guys figure out the best way to edit your videos. If you're a video editor looking to explore more possibilities with your footage, feel free to check out venturvisuals.com. This is my personal website, and on my website, I have a bunch of editing packs which you can try for free when you download my free pack. It's got samples from every pack on my website. You can download them right now and have more assets to use on your next edit. If that sounds interesting to you, feel free to check out the description down below. As always, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, clicking on my video, and supporting the channel. Hit me up anytime on Instagram if you just want to chop it up or talk projects. I'm here for you guys. So that's all for today. Super stoked on today's tutorial, and until next time, I'm Jake Vetter. Peace out.